Well, it looks like New England will not finish the season again undefeated as they lost to the Denver Broncos in overtime 30-24. But what is most surprising about this feat for Denver is they ended New England's unbeaten streak without Peyton Manning at quarterback. That's right, 6'8" Brock Osweiler got the job done against New England in just his second start at quarterback. And now, Denver has a tough question to answer. Do they go back to Peyton when he is ready? Because Osweiler did not look bad at all. Or do they stick it out with Osweiler? And as for the Patriots, their injury woes continued in this game. And this time, their injury troubles have reached someone very valuable in Rob Gronkowski. So for the Patriots, their season is on the line when it comes to this Gronk diagnosis. If he's done, they're done. Welcome back to the Best Damn Sports Blog. Back again to talk NFL with you guys, specifically the New England Patriots and Denver Broncos, who had a fantastic game on Sunday Night Football a night ago that ended with the Broncos winning 30-24 in overtime. And I just want to start with the referees who had some poor calls in this game. And it kind of seemed like the fix was in to make sure the Patriots took their first loss of the season. Now, I'm not saying that took place. I'm just letting you know. There was some questionable calls against New England, like a push-off on Gronkowski, then the holding call on Patrick Chung in the fourth quarter that would have set up Denver, third and goal at the 15-yard line. Instead, they have first and goal at the 4, in which they scored a go-ahead touchdown. I mean, there were some poor calls. But the Patriots, they just flat out lost, despite the poor calls. Tom Brady, he is just amazing to watch. Despite going down 24-21, the Patriots were still able to complete 2 passes, Tom Brady to LaFell and Scott Chandler, to set up a 47-yard field goal by Gostkowski to force the game into overtime. And man, is Gostkowski clutch in Denver, snowing, wind. He knocks it in like it's nothing, and the game is headed to overtime. Pats got the first drive of overtime, were unable to move the ball, punted. Denver had okay field position, but then C.J. Anderson broke out to the outside to run in for, I believe, a 40, maybe 50-yard touchdown that ended the game. And now it's murder she wrote for the Patriots. They're now 10-1. Carolina remains the only undefeated team. And now New England's lead atop of the AFC for the number 1 seed, which guarantees a first-round bye as well as home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs, is now just to 1 game over Cincinnati and Denver, who are both 9-2, while the Patriots are 10-1. And luckily for the Pats, in Week 16, the Broncos and Bengals face off against each other, which most likely means the Pats, at the worst, will at least get the 2nd seed as long as they don't go on to lose the rest of their games this season, which I doubt they would do so. They have a pretty favorable schedule the rest of the way. I'm going to read you their opponents. Next week, they have the Eagles. Following week, they travel to the Texans. Then they host the Titans. Then they face the Jets. In their last game of the season, they go to Miami. So their schedule is very favorable down the stretch. I could see them winning all 5 of those games, finishing 15-1. But back to the game at hand, in which Brock Osweiler became the first QB since Peyton Manning to lead his team to victory despite trailing the Patriots by 14 points in the game. Yes, that's what Brock Osweiler achieved in his second start of the season, defeating the New England Patriots when he trailed 21-7 heading into the fourth quarter. Now for the Patriots, where this game was lost was really their injury woes. 2 important things that took place. Chris Harper fumbled a punt in the beginning of the fourth quarter that set up Denver to score their 2nd touchdown of the game to make it 24-14. And why is that important? Well, if Amendola and Julian Edelman were not injured, one of those 2 would have been the punt returner, and most likely they wouldn't have fumbled the punt. The Patriots had a sub in that punt returner. This is what happens when you're forced to rely on backups. They make mistakes and they jumpstart comebacks for opposing teams. And also, another glaring fact from this game, Dante Hightower got injured. We know he is probably their best run stopper, and there isn't a part of the field that he won't travel. Well, prior to his injury, the Broncos had 15 carries for 43 yards. Following his injury, the Broncos had 17 carries for 136 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns. If that doesn't spell out what the problem is in that game, then I don't know what to tell you. New England, they lost. The Broncos got the job done. I'm taking nothing away from Denver. Their defense is still stout. And Brock Osweiler has been pretty efficient at quarterback, especially in comparison to Peyton Manning, who to date has 9 touchdown passes, 17 interceptions, and in most statistical categories, he ranks in the bottom third amongst quarterbacks. Not bottom half, the bottom third. Brock Osweiler made some great passes. He made a great pass to Emmanuel Sanders that set them up for a touchdown, as well as a perfectly placed pass to Andre Caldwell that scored the go-ahead touchdown. And there's just something about this kid I like. He's 6'8", so he can see over the line, and he just has that poise in the pocket so far, what I've seen from him, that makes me believe he is an NFL starting quarterback in this league. And now the Broncos, they have a tough question ahead of them, deciding whether they go back to Peyton once he's healthy or stick it out with Osweiler. Now, anyone who knows me knows I'm not the biggest Peyton Manning fan at all, although I do respect him and regard him as one of the best quarterbacks of all time. But he is a legend. You mean to tell me you're going to have Peyton Manning healthy and have him go out like a sucker on the bench to Brock Osweiler, who has, I believe, 2 starts to date? Maybe he had starts in garbage time when the Broncos already clinched and they didn't want to play Peyton. But this season he has just 2 starts? You're going to tell me you're going to bench him for Peyton? That's a tough one. But at the same time, Peyton has been awful. And that's just the facts. 9 touchdowns, 17 interceptions. The Broncos have been winning in spite of Peyton Manning. But he's such a legend, you cannot let him go out on the bench. So the Broncos, they're in the limbo. For their sake, they're probably hoping either Osweiler stinks up the joint in these remaining games, or they hope Peyton Manning never gets healthy, because, man, either way, they're in a lose-lose situation. You start Brock Osweiler and don't win, people are going to say you should have went back to Peyton Manning. You start Peyton Manning and don't win, people will say you should have stuck it out with Osweiler, who has looked to be the better quarterback so far this season. So the Broncos are in a lose-lose situation unless whoever they choose as their quarterback going forward goes on to win the Super Bowl. Other than that, there's going to be people talking from both sides. So for the Broncos, man, I would hate to be in their situation, especially John Elway, with a legend like Peyton Manning waiting in the ropes, and then you got an up-and-comer like Brock Osweiler who has looked better so far. Man, that's a tough decision. But I want to get back to the New England Patriots and their injury woes, because they suffered a huge injury, and that would be to Rob Gronkowski, who we know has had his injury troubles years ago. Last year was his first full year, I believe, in a while, and what was the result? A Patriots Super Bowl victory. So, at the moment this podcast is being recorded, the news is not broke on the diagnosis of Gronk's injury, but from reports that I have gathered from the likes of ESPN's Adam Schefter and such, the Patriots can have a sigh of relief, because the reports are the injury is not that serious. Because if it was serious, you can kiss the Super Bowl goodbye for the New England Patriots. Now, say Gronk was out, I still give them a slight chance to make it to the Super Bowl. But to win it all without Gronkowski, with the hobble Edelman by the time the Super Bowl rolls around, with Amendola out now. I know Lewis will be out for the rest of the season. Hightower's dealing with injury. Jamie Collins dealing with injury. That is too much for even the great Tom Brady to overcome. The Patriots, they will need to make sure they hold on to that number 1 seed in the AFC. Because if they have to travel to Denver, Brock Osweiler has already proven he can beat Tom Brady in Denver. And Cincinnati had a good bounce back win against St. Louis in week 11 as well. It's not a foregone conclusion, as most tried to tell us, that the Patriots will represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. There is still a lot of football to be played. And as the Patriots continue to suffer injuries every week, we got to make sure they make it to the playoffs healthy before we just declare them as the representatives of the AFC in the Super Bowl. I'm a Patriots fan, but let's be realistic here. These injuries are piling up, and like I just stated, even the great Tom Brady cannot overcome these type of injury problems week in and week out.